Okay, Brandon, take it away. Can we have quiet, please? Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Brandon Dormer from Bloodborne. This is an extended project plan. This is my plan going forward for the next few months. Next slide. What I'm planning to do, I've always been fascinated with game soundtracks. You know, when you're walking through a forest or something, a massive tower comes out of nowhere, the music starts to swell and stuff like that. Oh, it just fills you with joy. But I'm looking more at a horror game, so the opposite aspect of it, just so that I can get more experience in something that I'm not familiar with, something that I can research and start to delve in throughout the months. It goes well alongside my passion for songwriting, and it's starting to go more down the avenue of composing and music development and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a big chance to take notes and stuff like that. Yeah, I intend to make an EP full of songs. If we go on to the next slide, should delve more into that. I've had a talk to some of my peers, mostly Dave's Quintet, in the situation of audience interactivity, because I kind of was thinking it's a bit of a situation where I don't know what to do with audience interactivity for a game soundtrack. But I felt, basically what the peers have told me to do is to release something monthly, and then ask on a social media of a poll which direction they should go down, whether it's like a haunted forest or like a mansion or like a big chase or something. So every month I could make a new song depending on where we go with the story. I'm also, there's a big influence from Gorillaz. They did this thing called Song Machine, where they released a song every month, and then they released an entire album around that. So yeah. Research, because I'm not familiar with composing as much as songwriting, I feel like it's good to kind of get more information out of composing. And obviously, because when you're writing an album, you've got different feelings and different emotions that you need to get through. With a game soundtrack on one particular setting, you get one feeling out of it. The feeling of uneasiness. So I'll try and look at different composers of that genre. Yeah. Chord progressions as well I need to work on, and how to get the scary tension out of different chord progressions and stuff like that. Moving on to SWAT. Writing off of a foundation I'm very good at, so if someone gives me an idea, I'm like, yeah, we can make this out of this and this out of that. Instrument knowledge. I know a couple of instruments that go into sort of, I don't know why they're laughing. I've got instrument knowledge, so like synths and stuff like that I can work with. I know how to carry notes into a journey, so like sweep people off into different places and stuff like that, you know. And knowledge on game soundtrack composers, because I look at that in my spare time. If we look at weaknesses, knowledge on different chords, so like diminished chords and stuff like that. I still need a bit of work on.
2 minor thirds, mate.
Yeah. I haven't got a lot of experience writing spooky music, so that will be good to kind of research into that along with the game composers. Writing on the fly. For a standard pick your own adventure, so if someone does pick the spooky forest over the mansion or something like that, it's kind of difficult for me to be like, oh, this needs to be done now. So it'll be good to research into how to maintain composure through that. Also writing different sections to carry a journey on, so like going from one section and then straight dive into another, which is something that game soundtracks do all the time. If you go to opportunities, learning a different style of songwriting that can blend into other things, pretty self-explanatory. Showing my skill to gain a wider audience to be interested in hearing what a horror game composed by me would sound like. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory as well. Gaining a decent idea of how other composers go about setting a foundation for a song in a location or a certain part of the story. That goes along with researching what composers do and stuff like that. and obviously storytelling through music is a good one if I'm to carry this through to an album or something like that. Next one. Threats, the overwhelming nature of having to make a song every month without fail. Obviously, because I'm doing that as my plan, it would kind of be one of the threats that I have. Not having a big enough audience to actually know which way to take the story through polls. So just gaining an audience would be kind of catastrophic if that doesn't happen. People losing interest halfway throughout because of the long wait for new music. Obviously promotion is a big thing, so being on Instagram actively throughout the whole of the project, not being able to deliver the highest quality every month, so if I'm getting like kind of tired or something and like my experience or something dwindles throughout the months, is kind of, you know. Next one. In conclusion, the best thing to do for this style of composing is to get a rough understanding through research for the first few weeks and then begin writing on the game. Make sure that I manage my time and get the song done before moving my attention to something else that could potentially jeopardise the entire project, or giving the right amount of promotion to make sure that the audience that I gain from this stick around and are always excited to hear new songs from me. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Question number one.
Firstly, I'd just like to say, sorry for laughing.
What
There's a funny incident with the chair.
I saw that happen.
But
Yeah.
my question is, like, who are you going to look at for further influence? Like, are you going to be looking at
Certain,
game
so
developers?
yeah, I'm gonna look at certain horror games, mainly like your Resident Evil and like Outlast and stuff like that, and try and find the composers that did the songs and then see if they've done anything else on the horror aspect. Yeah. Next question, though. Ellie, come back.
How do you plan on documenting your process?
Well, I was going to put it in a slide, but I ran out of time to do so, or I probably did something else, I don't know. But I'm going to document it by videoing myself through my process of getting the songwriting done, and through like research, documenting what I've found out about it, and then obviously putting it into a journal on a website. Jamie?
What are you most looking forward to in this project?
Just songwriting aspect. I mean, whenever I compose or songwrite a new piece of music, it always thrills me. So yeah, it's just songwriting in general.
What kind of instrumentation do you plan on using?
So I plan on using mainly strings, because they're really like horrific sounding when they're up, you know. And synths as well. Synths are a big thing in horror games. They could like carry a story in and like explode into like synths and stuff like that. Synths and violins are mainly what I'm going to be using.
So you said you were going to do it through like polls, right? For like your game. Do you plan on just winging it each time the poll comes in your result, or are you going to have plans for each like result throughout the whole thing?
Based on the polls that I choose, I'm going to have something that I've set my mind on where the story should go. So it could either be two or one thing. So then it makes it easy for me to write a song based off of that, because I know where the story's going. Ellie?
Sorry.
Patience.
So within like these, is it just going to be like a sound kind of story experience, or do you plan on kind of using words, not necessarily lyrics, but words to create more ambience other than just the strings and synths?
So right now I'm thinking of just doing the music to kind of carry the story through. I might develop it into some sort of like story as in audiobook or something like that, but right now it's just the audio, yeah. Okay.
You said about using strings. Would you use any violin or cello, because they're used a lot in horror movies?
So basically, when I talk about strings, I'm talking about the whole range of strings. So like the low
And then what else
octave
did you
strings and the high octave strings.
Yeah.
So violins and cellos are
Because as far as I know, you don't have a violin or a cello, but
I have Logic. I have MIDI instruments.
I took it to mean that you were going to use MIDI rather than try to learn to play the violin.
When I'm working on Logic, it will be like MIDI instruments, which will cover the violins and that. Yes.
Are you going to use more natural chords or more dissonant chords?
Probably more dissonant chords, because I've started a bass as far as now, and yeah, it's more of a dissonant type of film.
Yeah, so it's like
yeah.
with horror stuff, you're going to be exploring all the levels of tension and dissonance and
Harmonic.
The main aim is to try and get tension, unless you know there's a save game theme.
So I'm like a little bit unclear. I think the idea of getting like interaction from social media is good, but I'm a little unclear on how that's going to work and on how it's going to look. So are you doing this to any kind of visuals, or is it literally just like, because I think you're going to struggle to put the idea of a sort of story across without any visuals or words, like Eddie said, or like if it's just music, do you know what I mean? Because it will just be like, oh, here's a piece of music that's like a bit like a forest or whatever. So it's just sort of like, it's not really a story, it's more like some random pieces of music, unless you were to put it to some visuals. So I don't know, that might require a bit more.
Yeah, I would research more into how to create a kind of like story through visuals and words than if music can't carry the whole story.
Another thing that you could do as well, I was thinking, is if you've got that element of like a poll or something, you could sort of make it so that there's only a set amount of answers, and it's like the illusion of choice, but actually there's only a few things that you can choose and you've already planned them. The other thing was, if you do something every month, you've probably only got time to do 2 songs.
Okay.
Because we'll start the project properly in like March, and you hand it in the end of May.
Okay.
So it might need to be every 2 weeks or something like that.
Alright.
Which you need to think about how quickly you can do that.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
Why did it appeal to you?
Why did it appeal to me? Just games in general. When I'm playing through a game and I hear the soundtrack, and it's very good, and it goes along with the story and everything. It's just it's beautiful.
I think it would really benefit you to actually put some music onto a visual thing. Like obviously, doing game music is quite difficult because you have to there are different sort of points where the music has to come in and blend and stuff.
Like stings in it.
Yeah, but if you pick like a 5-10 minute sequence, I think that might be the best way. But we'll talk about it a bit more later on. I do think it's a brilliant idea. I just think there's a couple of bits that need sorting.
Well, do you have a suggestion for this? I did a similar thing a few years ago where I created like a creepy score for a poem. So it was someone reading out a poem, and then I scored it with like creepy pianos, diminished chords and stuff like that, because it's like a spooky kind of vibe. So
what you could do, rather than
by smart work,
like, you could get people on social media to tell you what stimulus to use. So you could have like a poem or a short video or whatever, and then use that as like, which one am I going to use as my stimulus for this particular thing. That might be a good idea. I think there's a couple of things. I think it's a really good idea, but there's a couple of things that I think need nailing down on it.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any questions? Awesome. All right. Well done, Brandon.